The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through star systems, planets, and the vast emptiness between worlds. For thousands of years, the Jedi had served as its guardians, maintaining balance and peace. But the Force was not the only power in existence. Beyond the borders of the known galaxy, beyond the reaches of hyperspace lanes and uncharted regions, other universes thrived with their own laws, their own energies, their own warriors. And on this day, those boundaries would shatter. The battle had been apocalyptic. Goku traded blows with his opponent high above Earth's atmosphere, each impact sending shockwaves that distorted the air itself. Energy blasts carved through clouds, and the combatants moved faster than human eyes could track. Goku powered up to Super Saiyan, golden aura blazing around him like a star-given form, his hair defying gravity as raw power radiated from every cell in his body. He prepared his signature attack, hands cupping at his side as blue-white energy coalesced between his palms. Ka-mi-ha-mi. His opponent launched a counterattack, crimson energy screaming toward him. Goku released his Kamehameha wave at the exact same instant. The two forces collided in the space between them, creating a nexus of impossible energy. Reality itself groaned under the pressure. Then something went catastrophically wrong. The energy sphere between them didn't explode outward. It collapsed inward, creating a vortex of swirling colors that had no name in any language. Goku felt the pull immediately, felt space-time itself tearing like fabric. He tried to power up, to resist with everything he had, but the force was irresistible. The last thing he saw was his opponent being pulled in the opposite direction before the universe inverted, and Goku was falling through a tunnel of impossible light. He fell through colors that shouldn't exist. He fell through silence that screamed. He fell through a space between spaces where the rules of physics became suggestions rather than laws. His Kai flared instinctively, protecting him from the dimensional stresses that would have torn apart anything less durable. Then, as suddenly as it began, the tunnel spat him out. Goku burst into normal space above a forest moon, his golden aura still blazing, his momentum carrying him forward like a meteor. Below him stretched an endless canopy of trees, and in the distance he could see structures, a base of some kind, prefabricated buildings arranged in a defensive perimeter. Warning klaxons began to wail as his energy signature registered on every sensor within 100 kilometers. Inside the Rebel Alliance outpost on Dantooine IV, alarms shrieked to life. Technicians scrambled to their stations, eyes widening at readouts that made no sense. Commander Vorel, a grizzled veteran of a dozen campaigns against the Empire, sprinted into the command center. "Report," he barked. "Sir, we've got an incoming object. Not a ship, sensors read it as a life form, but the energy output is." The technician's voice trailed off in disbelief. "Sir, it's reading higher than a capital ship reactor. That can't be right." "Show me visual," Vorel demanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from their perimeter cameras. A figure wreathed in golden light was plummeting toward their position, trailing energy that made the air shimmer. It looked humanoid, but no human could survive unprotected in vacuum, let alone generate that kind of power signature. "Get everyone to defensive positions, and someone tell me if that thing is natural or if the Empire just threw something new at us." Goku tried to slow his descent, but he was still disoriented from the dimensional crossing. He traveled to other planets before, King Kai's world, Nank. Even the hyperbolic time chamber existed outside normal space, but this felt different. The energy here was strange, pervasive in a way he'd never experienced. It wasn't Kai exactly, but it was something alive, something that touched everything around him. He managed to redirect his momentum at the last second. What would have been a catastrophic impact becoming merely a thunderous landing that left a crater 30 meters wide in the forest clearing. Dust and debris exploded outward. When it cleared, Goku stood in the center, powering down from Super Saiyan. His golden hair faded back to black, his aura dissipating like morning mist. He looked around, taking stock of his situation with the quick assessment of a martial artist who'd been thrown into strange situations more times than he could count. Trees, not like any he'd seen on Earth, but definitely trees. Sky, blue with two suns hanging at different angles. Air, breathable good. He took a deep breath, centering himself, reaching out with his Kai senses to get a feel for the area. What he felt made his eyes widen. There were people nearby, lots of them, but their energy signatures were strange. Most were weak, normal human level, but there was something else mixed in, something that felt almost like Kai but fundamentally different. And in the distance, scattered across what felt like an impossibly vast area, he could sense other presences. Some strong, some terrifyingly dark. Okay, Goku said to himself, cracking his neck. Guess I'm not on Earth anymore. Better find someone who can explain where I am. Maybe they'll know how to get me back. He lifted into the air, a casual application of Kai that had become as natural as breathing decades ago, and flew toward the cluster of energy signatures he'd sensed. Within seconds, he cleared the tree line and saw the base spread out below him. Inside the command center, chaos reigned. It's moving, heading directly for our position. How fast? Vorel demanded. Faster than any speeder we have on record. Sir, whatever this thing is, it's not using any propulsion system we can detect. It's just flying. Get me a comm line to Yavin base. Tell them we may have a situation. Vorel's hand moved to his blaster. Around the command center, rebel soldiers were arming themselves, taking up defensive positions. They'd chosen Dantooine IV precisely because it was remote, easily defendable, perfect for a staging area away from Imperial attention. Now something had found them, and they had no idea if it was friend, foe, or something entirely outside their understanding of the galaxy. Goku descended slowly, hands visible and empty, a gesture of peace he'd learned from countless first contacts on other worlds. He touched down gently in the center of the base, and immediately found himself surrounded by 24 soldiers, all with weapons trained on him. Whoa, hey, Goku raised his hands higher. I'm not here to fight. Well, I mean, I can fight if I need to, but I don't want to. I'm just lost and trying to figure out where I am. The weapons didn't lower. Goku noticed they were energy weapons of some kind, not the Kai blasts he was used to, but something technological. The soldiers wore mismatched armor and uniforms, unlike any military force he'd seen. Behind them, more people were emerging from buildings, and Goku could feel their fear, their confusion, their tension. Commander Vorel pushed through the line of soldiers, his blaster holstered but hand resting on it. He was a tall man with the bearing of someone who'd seen too much combat, weathered face marked with scars that told stories of narrow survival. He studied Goku with the careful eye of a tactician trying to assess a threat. You speak basic, Vorel said, more statement than question. Basic? Goku tilted his head. I'm speaking Japanese, or am I? That's weird. He paused, processing the strangeness of understanding a language he'd never heard before. Actually, yeah, I guess I can understand you. That's new. Who are you? What world are you from? And how did you get here without a ship? I'm Goku, Son Goku. I'm from Earth, at least I was. I was fighting someone and then there was this weird portal thing and now I'm here. He lowered his hand slightly, his posture relaxed despite the weapons. Look, I know this probably looks strange, but I really am just lost. If you could point me towards someone who might know about interdimensional travel or weird portals, that'd be great. Vorel exchanged glances with his second-in-command, a woman named Saren who looked equally baffled. Interdimensional? You're saying you're from another dimension? I guess, unless Earth is really far away and I just don't recognize anything. Goku looked up at the twin suns. Those definitely aren't normal, though. Earth only has one sun. Before Vorel could respond, another alarm began to wail, different in pitch, more urgent. A technician's voice crackled over the comm system, tight with panic. "Commander, Imperial Star Destroyer just entered orbit. They're launching TIE fighters and deploying ground forces. We've been found." The effect was immediate. Soldiers began running to defensive positions, automated turrets rising from concealed housings. The weapons that had been trained on Goku swung away, redirected toward the sky where, in the distance, dark specks were growing larger with terrifying speed. Goku's expression shifted, his easygoing demeanor hardening. He'd spent enough time around warriors to recognize preparation for battle. Imperial, are they the bad guys? Vorel was already moving toward the command center, but he paused long enough to look back at Goku. "If you're asking, you're about to find out firsthand. The Galactic Empire doesn't take prisoners at outposts like this. They execute everyone as traitors to the Emperor." "They kill everyone," Goku's Kai flared slightly, unconsciously responding to his rising anger. The air around him shimmered. "Even people who aren't fighting." "Everyone," Saren confirmed, checking her blaster's charge. "Men, women, anyone they find. That's how the Empire maintains control, through fear." Goku's fists clenched. He'd faced evil before, tyrants who destroyed worlds, monsters who killed for pleasure, beings who threatened entire universes. He recognized it now in the approaching ships, in the fear he sensed from the people around him. These rebels might have had weapons pointed at him moments ago, but they were preparing to defend their home against an enemy that would show no mercy. The choice was easy. It was always easy for Goku when innocent lives were at stake. "Okay," he said quietly, "then I guess I'm helping." Vorel stopped, turned back. What can one person do against?" His words cut off as Goku's power erupted around him, golden energy blazing to life as he transformed into Super Saiyan in an instant. His hair spiked upward, turning gold, his eyes shifting to teal, his entire body radiating power that made the air crack with electricity. The ground beneath his feet fractured from the pressure. Every soldier nearby staggered back, hands raised against the sudden wind that whipped outward from Goku's transformation. Sensor arrays across the base went haywire. In orbit, aboard the Imperial Star Destroyer Relentless, Captain Threx stared at his instruments in disbelief as an energy reading that dwarfed anything in their database suddenly appeared on the planet's surface. "What in the name of the Emperor is that?" he whispered. Goku rose into the air, golden aura trailing behind him like a comet's tail. He looked down at Vorel, at Saren, at the rebels preparing to fight and die against impossible odds. His expression was serious now, the carefree warrior replaced by Earth's protector who'd stood against gods. "I don't know everything about what's happening here," Goku said, his voice carrying across the base without him needing to shout. "But I know evil when I see it, and I know people worth protecting when I meet them, so you guys focus on getting everyone to safety. I'll handle the Empire." He shot into the sky like a golden star, leaving a sonic boom in his wake that rattled buildings and sent dust swirling. The rebels watched, stunned into silence, as this stranger from another dimension flew directly toward a squadron of TIE fighters that were screaming toward their position. Commander Vorel finally found his voice. "Someone tell me what the hell just happened." "I don't know, sir," the technician replied, eyes still locked on his sensors. "But whatever he is, his power output just exceeded our entire base's defensive grid by a factor of 50. In the sky above Dantooine IV, Goku flew faster than any ship in the Imperial Navy could track. The TIE fighters appeared before him, their distinctive scream piercing the atmosphere. He'd never seen ships quite like these, no wings in the traditional sense, just these weird hexagonal panels on either side of a central pod. They opened fire, green energy bolts streaking toward him. Goku weaved between the blasts with casual ease, his enhanced perception making them seem to crawl through the air. He pulled up short, hovering in place as the fighters screamed past him, their pilots fighting to turn their ships around. They were fast, he'd give them that, but not nearly fast enough. Let's see if we can do this without blowing anyone up, Goku muttered. He'd learned long ago that not every fight needed to end in death. Maybe these pilots were just following orders. Maybe they could be reasoned with. One TIE fighter completed its turn and came at him again, weapons blazing. Goku sighed. Or maybe not. He moved, closing the distance in a fraction of a second. His hand came down in a precise chop on the fighter's hull, carefully controlled, just enough force to disable the engines without destroying the entire craft. The TIE fighter went into a spin, its pilot ejecting in a small pod that descended toward the forest below on a parachute. Okay, that worked, Goku grinned, his fighting spirit igniting. More fighters were converging on his position, and above them, larger ships were deploying. This was going to be interesting. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. In his meditation chamber aboard the Executor, Darth Vader's eyes snapped open behind his mask. He'd felt it, a presence in the Force unlike anything he'd experienced in his decades of serving the Emperor. Not a Force-sensitive, exactly, but something that registered as a massive disturbance in the natural order. A power that existed outside the boundaries of light and dark, yet carried a strength that rivaled anything he'd encountered. "What are you?" Vader whispered into the darkness of his chamber. Whatever this presence was, it had just appeared in Imperial space and had already engaged Imperial forces. The Emperor would want to know. More than that, the Emperor would want this power controlled, studied, or destroyed. Vader rose from his meditation, black cape flowing behind him as he strode toward the bridge. His breathing echoed in the chamber, the mechanical rhythm that had sustained him since Mustafar. He'd hunted Jedi across the galaxy, had faced warriors of every species and creed. But this presence, this power, felt different. It felt like a challenge. And Darth Vader did not ignore challenges. On Dantooine IV, Goku dispatched 3 more TIE fighters with precise strikes, each pilot ejecting before their craft crashed. He was starting to get a feel for these ships, fast and maneuverable but fragile, like they'd been built for speed over durability. Another squadron approached from his left, and Goku spun in midair, deflecting their energy blasts with quick movements of his hands, his Kai automatically responding to protect him. "This is actually kind of fun," he called out to no one in particular. Then a massive shadow fell over him, and Goku looked up to see something that made even him pause. The Star Destroyer hung in orbit like a dagger pointed at the planet's heart, over a kilometer long, bristling with weapons and hangars that were disgorging wave after wave of fighters and troop transports. It was a monument to military power, a statement that the Empire could project overwhelming force anywhere it chose. Goku whistled low. Now that's a big ship. His Kai sense reached out, feeling the thousands of life forms aboard the vessel. Soldiers, pilots, crew, people who might just be doing their jobs, following orders in a war he didn't understand yet. But also he sensed something else. Something darker, more malevolent. The same twisted energy he'd felt from beings like Frieza and Cell, the kind of evil that enjoyed causing pain. "Guess it's time to introduce myself properly," Goku said. He powered up, his aura intensifying, golden lightning crackling around him as he began to rise toward the Star Destroyer. On the bridge of the Asterisk Relentless, Captain Threx watched his tactical display in growing horror, as their TIE fighter squadron was systematically disabled by a single individual. A single individual who was now ascending directly toward his ship. "All weapons target that object, fire at will." Turbolaser batteries swiveled, tracking Goku's ascent. Green energy lanced through space, converging on his position. Goku's eyes widened. These blasts were more powerful than the fighter's weapons, each one carrying enough energy to level a city block. He couldn't just deflect these. So he did what came naturally. He began dodging at full speed. To the crew of the Asterisk Relentless, it appeared that their target simply vanished, reappearing dozens of meters away in a different location, then vanishing again. Their targeting computers couldn't lock on, couldn't predict his movements. It was impossible. Nothing biological could move that fast, could survive in vacuum, could ignore the fundamental laws of physics that governed their galaxy. But Goku wasn't from their galaxy, and the laws of Dragon Ball Z were very different from the laws of Star Wars. He reached the ship's hull and touched down on it gently, looking around at the massive expanse of imperial gray metal. Through the hull, he could sense the people inside, so many of them, all focused on trying to kill him. He'd dealt with hostile armies before, but something about this felt different. These weren't warriors looking for a good fight. These were soldiers of an oppressive regime, and below them on the planet, people were dying. Goku placed his hand on the hull and extended his Kai sense deeper, searching for the ship's vital systems. He wasn't an engineer, but he'd blown up plenty of enemy bases and ships over the years. Every machine had weak points, places where the right amount of force could disable without necessarily killing everyone inside. "Sorry about this," he said, then drove his fist into the hull. The metal crumpled like paper. Alarms shrieked as atmosphere began venting from the breach. Goku moved along the hull with superhuman speed, his fists and Kai blasts carefully placed to disable weapon systems, sensor arrays, and engine clusters. He wasn't trying to destroy the ship, just take it out of the fight. Inside the bridge, Captain Threx clung to his command chair as the ship shuddered from multiple impacts. Damage report. Weapons systems offline. Engines at 40%. Hull breaches on multiple decks, sir. Whatever that thing is, it's tearing us apart. Threx's face went pale. In 30 years of Imperial service, he'd never encountered anything like this. Signal the surface forces to abort. Full retreat. Get us out of. The ship lurched violently as Goku punched through the primary reactor's shielding, disrupting the power flow without causing a catastrophic explosion. The lights on the bridge flickered, died, then switched to emergency red. Main power offline. We're dead in space. Goku lifted off from the hull, floating back to survey his work. The Star Destroyer hung dark and powerless in orbit, no longer a threat. He hadn't wanted to kill anyone, and from what his senses told him, most of the crew was still alive, scared, confused, but alive. The troop transports that had been heading for the planet's surface were turning back, retreating to the disabled ship. "That should do it," Goku said with satisfaction. He looked down at the planet below where he could still sense the rebel base. They were probably wondering what just happened. He should head back, explain things, figure out where he was and how to get home. But even as he started to descend, Goku felt it, that dark presence he'd sensed earlier growing closer. It was coming from another ship, one approaching from deeper in the system, and this presence felt different from the normal soldiers. This felt like something powerful, something dangerous, something that wanted to fight. Goku's warrior instincts stirred, a grin spreading across his face despite the situation. Finally, someone strong. The forest moon of Dantooine IV had never seen anything like the Golden Warrior, who descended from the sky like a legend made flesh. Goku touched down in the center of the rebel base, to a scene of organized chaos, soldiers running supplies, medics tending to wounded from preliminary Imperial bombardments, technicians frantically trying to restore damaged systems. Every single person stopped what they were doing to stare at him as he powered down from Super Saiyan, his golden aura fading back to his normal black-haired state. Commander Vorel approached cautiously, flanked by a security detail who looked uncertain whether their blasters would even be relevant. The grizzled commander's expression was a mixture of awe, suspicion, and desperate hope. "You disabled an Imperial Star Destroyer. Alone. In under 5 minutes. "Yeah, sorry if I got a little rough with it," Goku said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "I tried not to kill anyone. Most of the crew should be okay, just shaken up. Their ship's not going anywhere for a while, though." "Not kill anyone." Saren, the second in command, stepped forward. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. You just did more damage to Imperial military assets than some rebel cells accomplish in a year, and you're apologizing for not being gentle enough. Goku shrugged. I mean, they were attacking you guys, so I had to stop them, but they're probably just soldiers following orders, right? Back on Earth, I fought a lot of people who were being controlled or didn't know better. Killing them isn't always the answer. He paused, his expression growing more serious. But that dark presence I felt, the one heading this way now, that's different. That one feels like pure evil. Voral's blood ran cold. Dark presence, what are you talking about? Someone really powerful is coming. I can sense them. It's like they're made of anger and pain and hate all mixed together. Goku pointed toward the sky, in a direction where nothing was visible yet. They're still pretty far away, but they're definitely heading here, and they feel strong, really strong. A technician sprinted out of the command center, his face ashen. Commander, long-range sensors just picked up a massive vessel entering the system. It's the Executor, sir. Vader's personal superstar destroyer. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the base, experienced rebel soldiers, men and women who'd survived battles against impossible odds, went pale. Some made religious gestures. Others simply checked their weapons with the grim determination of people who knew they were about to die. Vader, Voral whispered. The name was spoken with the kind of fear usually reserved for natural disasters or ancient monsters. He's coming here personally. Who's Vader? Goku asked, genuinely curious. The reaction had been so extreme that he wanted to understand what kind of person could inspire this level of terror. Saren turned to him, and Goku saw something in her eyes he'd rarely seen from warriors, true existential dread. Darth Vader is the Emperor's enforcer, his right hand, a dark lord of the Sith who can kill with a gesture, who's hunted down and murdered nearly every Jedi in the galaxy. He's destroyed entire rebel cells single-handedly. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper, he's death incarnate. He sounds strong, Goku said, and to the rebels' shock he smiled. Not a cruel smile, but the eager grin of a martial artist who just heard about a worthy opponent. I'm looking forward to meeting him. You don't understand, Voral grabbed Goku's shoulder, an almost desperate gesture. Vader isn't just strong. He uses the Force. It's an energy field that connects all living things. He can crush your windpipe from across a room, can sense your thoughts, can move faster than human eyes can track. Jedi masters who trained for decades fell before him. You can't fight Vader and win. Goku's expression softened with understanding. He'd heard this before, on Namek when the Earthlings learned he was going to face Frieza, on Earth before the Cell Games, before facing Majin Buu. People always assumed that because someone was legendary, they were unbeatable. Sometimes they were right. Often they were wrong. I appreciate the warning, Goku said gently, but I've fought gods and monsters that could destroy planets. I've died and come back to life. I've faced beings that entire universes feared. He placed a reassuring hand on Voral's shoulder. I'm not saying I'll definitely win. I never know that going into a fight. But I won't let him hurt you or your people. That's a promise. Before Voral could respond, a young rebel ran up, panting. Sir, there's someone requesting permission to land, says he's a friend of the Alliance. His credentials check out, it's Luke Skywalker. Voral's eyebrows rose. Skywalker, what's he doing this far out? He turned to his communications officer. Grant him landing clearance, pad 3. Who's Luke Skywalker? Goku asked as they began walking toward the landing pad. A pilot, one of our best, Saren explained. He's also Force-sensitive, one of the few remaining people in the galaxy who might become a Jedi if he survives long enough to complete his training. He was instrumental in destroying the Death Star at the Battle of Yavin. Death Star? A battle station the size of a small moon, capable of destroying entire planets. Luke flew into its exhaust port and fired the shot that destroyed it, saving the rebellion. Goku whistled appreciatively. Sounds like a brave kid. They reached the landing pad just as a battered X-Wing fighter descended on repulsor engines, its distinctive S-foil wings locked in flight position. The fighter settled onto the pad with practiced ease, and the cockpit canopy hissed open. A young man in an orange flight suit climbed out, followed by a small domed droid that beeped and whistled as it was lowered on a crane. Luke Skywalker was in his early 20s, with sandy blonde hair and blue eyes that held a mixture of idealism and hard-earned wisdom. He looked tired, like he'd been flying for days, but there was a determination in his bearing that reminded Goku of Gohan, someone young who'd been forced to grow up too fast by war. Luke approached Commander Vorel, extending his hand in greeting. "Commander, I was in the sector when I picked up your distress signal. I came as fast as I—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as they locked onto Goku. His hand dropped to his side, forgotten. Goku felt it immediately. Luke was reaching out with that strange energy he'd sensed earlier, the one that permeated everything in this galaxy. The Force, they'd called it. It was probing at him, trying to understand what he was, and Goku instinctively responded with his own Kai sense, creating a brief moment of connection between two completely different power systems. Luke staggered, actually stepping backward. His face went through several expressions in quick succession: shock, confusion, fear, and finally wonder. What are you? I can sense something from you, but it's like nothing I've ever felt before. It's not the Force, but it's similar, vast, like staring into a star." "I'm Goku," he said, offering his hand in the same gesture Luke had used with Vorel. "Son Goku, I'm from another dimension, I think. Sort of got pulled here by accident during a fight." Luke took his hand automatically, still staring. "Another dimension, I didn't know that was possible." "Neither did I until today," Goku admitted. "This whole galaxy is new to me, but these people have been pretty welcoming, even after I crash-landed on their base." He grinned. "Well, after they stopped pointing weapons at me anyway." R2-D2, Luke's astromech droid, rolled forward and beeped a series of questions at Goku. The little droid's dome swiveled as it scanned him, whistling in what sounded like mechanical confusion. "What's your friend saying?" Goku asked. Luke's expression was bemused. "R2 says your biology doesn't match any known species in his databanks. He's asking if you're a new type of droid with a remarkably realistic synthetic skin." Goku laughed. "Nope, I'm definitely organic, just not from around here." He crouched down to be at eye level with R2-D2. "Nice to meet you too, little guy." R2 beeped again, this time in what sounded like approval, and extended a small manipulator arm. Goku shook it solemnly, which seemed to delight the droid. "Luke," Vorel interrupted, his voice grave. "We have a bigger problem. The Executor is en route. Vader is coming here." All the color drained from Luke's face. Goku watched as the young man's hand unconsciously moved to his belt, where a cylindrical object hung. A lightsaber, Goku realized, though he'd never seen one before. The gesture was protective, defensive, like a child reaching for a security blanket in the face of their worst nightmare. "Vader," Luke breathed. "Here, why would he?" His eyes snapped to the sky toward where the disabled Star Destroyer hung in orbit. "The Relentless, what happened to it?" "That would be me," Goku said. "They were attacking the base, so I disabled their ship. Didn't want them hurting anyone." Luke stared at him. "You disabled a Star Destroyer, by yourself?" "It wasn't that hard," Goku said honestly. "The metal wasn't very strong, and once I found their power source, it was just a matter of disrupting it without blowing everything up. I've dealt with spaceships before." "He transformed into something," Saren added, still sounding awed. "Golden light, incredible power. He flew into space without a suit and tore apart their ship with his bare hands." Luke's expression shifted again, this time to something calculating. Goku recognized that look. It was the expression of someone trying to figure out if they just found a secret weapon or a potential threat. That power I sense from you. Can you control it? Direct it? Pretty much, yeah. I've been training since I was a kid. Why? Because if Vader is coming here personally, it means he sensed something that got the Emperor's attention. Something powerful enough to be considered a threat to the Empire. Luke's eyes met Goku's. He's coming for you. The implications settled over the group. Goku processed this information with the straightforward logic that had served him well through countless battles. So this Vader guy sensed my energy, figured I was dangerous, and is coming to either capture or kill me. That's the way the Sith work, Luke confirmed. They seek power and destroy anything that threatens their control. If Vader thinks you're a weapon he can't possess, he'll eliminate you. Okay, Goku said simply. Then I'll fight him when he gets here. You can't. Luke's voice was sharp, urgent. Vader is a Sith Lord. He's killed hundreds of Force users, including Jedi Masters who'd spent their entire lives training. I barely survived our last encounter, and he was toying with me. Whatever power you have, whatever you think you're capable of, Vader will find a way to counter it. Goku studied Luke carefully. He saw genuine concern there, not condescension. This young man had faced Vader before and survived, which meant he understood the threat. But he also saw fear, the kind of fear that came from being utterly outmatched, from facing something that had almost killed you and knowing you got lucky. I understand you're trying to protect me, Goku said gently, and I appreciate it, but I've been in this situation before, facing someone everyone said was unbeatable. Sometimes they were right and I had to train harder and get stronger. Sometimes they were wrong and I won anyway. Either way, I can't just run away when people need help. This isn't about bravery, Luke insisted. This is about survival. Vader doesn't just kill, he dominates. He'll get inside your head, use the Force to exploit every weakness, every doubt. And if the Force doesn't work, he'll adapt. He always adapts. Then I guess we'll see who adapts faster, Goku said with a slight smile. Besides, I'm curious about this Force thing you all keep talking about. It feels similar to Kai but different somehow. Maybe fighting Vader will help me understand it better. Voro looked between them, recognizing that no amount of argument would change Goku's mind. The Saiyan had the stubborn determination of someone who'd faced impossible odds before and come out alive. At least let us help. We can provide covering fire, set up defensive positions. No, Goku interrupted firmly. If Vader's as powerful as you say, having your soldiers around will just give him hostages to use against me. I've seen that tactic before. Villains threatening innocent people to distract me while they attack. It's better if everyone evacuates and I face him alone. He's right, Luke said reluctantly. Vader won't hesitate to kill civilians if it gives him an advantage. The best thing we can do is get everyone off planet and let Goku handle this. You're seriously suggesting we abandon our base and leave a stranger, no offense, to face Darth Vader alone? Saren looked incredulous. I'm suggesting we trust someone who just disabled a Star Destroyer without breaking a sweat, Luke countered. And I'm suggesting we recognize that sometimes the best way to help is to get out of the way. Goku placed a hand on Luke's shoulder. Thanks for having faith in me, but don't worry too much. I've got a good feeling about this fight. Well, not good exactly, but you know what I mean. It'll be interesting. A massive shadow fell over the base. Conversations died. Every head turned skyward as something enormous blotted out one of the suns. The Executor was a monument to imperial might, a super star destroyer that measured 19 kilometers from bow to stern. It hung in orbit like a predator looming over prey. Its wedge-shaped hull bristling with enough firepower to reduce the planet's surface to molten slag. No more time for debate, Voro said grimly. All personnel begin immediate evacuation, priority Alpha protocols. Grab what you can carry and get to the transports. Move, people. The base erupted into controlled chaos as rebels scattered to follow orders. Soldiers helped civilians toward waiting ships, Technicians frantically downloaded critical data onto portable drives, and pilots sprinted toward their fighters. Through it all, Goku stood calmly at the center of the landing pad, his eyes fixed on the massive ship hanging in orbit above them. Luke stayed beside him, R2-D2 beeping nervously at his feet. "Are you sure about this? It's not too late to come with us. We could regroup, come up with a plan." "Plans are overrated," Goku said with a grin. "I work better when I just react to what's happening. Keeps things exciting." "That's possibly the worst tactical philosophy I've ever heard," Luke admitted. "But I can't argue with results. You're still standing after taking on an Imperial Star Destroyer." A Lambda-class shuttle detached from the Executor, its distinctive triple wings catching the sunlight as it descended toward the planet. Smaller ships detached from its hangars, TIE fighters, dozens of them, forming an escort around the shuttle as it made its approach. Goku's Kai sense reached out, feeling the presence aboard that shuttle. Dark, cold, powerful, and underneath all that darkness something else. Pain. Loss. A sense of regret so profound it had been buried under decades of anger and hatred. This Vader wasn't just evil for evil's sake. He was someone who'd suffered, someone who'd made terrible choices and been twisted by their consequences. "He's hurt," Goku said quietly. "Vader. Underneath all that darkness and power, he's carrying pain that would break most people. I can feel it." Luke's eyes widened. "You can sense that through the Force." "Not the Force. Kai, my life energy. It lets me sense other people's energy, their emotions, their intentions. Everyone's different, and Vader's." Goku struggled to find words. "He's like a wound that never healed. All that anger and hate is just scar tissue covering something that still bleeds." "The Jedi texts say Vader was once Anakin Skywalker," Luke said softly. "A Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side. If what you're sensing is true, maybe there's still something of that man left inside the monster." "Maybe," Goku agreed. "Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. Either way, I'll know for sure once we fight. You learn a lot about someone when you exchange blows with them." The last transport lifted off, carrying the final evacuees away from the base. Luke looked torn, clearly wanting to stay but knowing he'd only be a liability in a fight of this magnitude. "Promise me something," he said urgently. "If you can't win, if things go badly, run. Use your speed, get away, and we'll figure out another approach. The rebellion needs allies like you. We can't afford to lose you in one battle." "I'll do my best," Goku said, which wasn't exactly a promise but was as close as Luke was going to get. "Now go, make sure your people are safe. That's what matters most." Luke nodded, called R2-D2 to follow, and ran toward his waiting X-Wing. The fighter's engines fired up, and moments later it lifted off, joining the stream of rebel ships fleeing the system. Within minutes, the base was empty, just abandoned buildings and defensive emplacements that wouldn't matter in the coming confrontation. Goku watched them go, making sure they cleared the atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace safely. Only when the last ship's signature disappeared from his Kai sense did he turn his attention back to the descending Lambda shuttle. The shuttle touched down on the primary landing pad with mechanical precision, its wings folding upward in a distinctive configuration. The boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics, vapor billowing from the release of pressure. For a long moment, nothing emerged. The silence stretched, became oppressive. Then he stepped into view. Darth Vader was a figure from nightmares given physical form. Over 2 meters tall, encased in black armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, his cape flowing behind him as if moved by winds that didn't exist. His helmet was a mask of polished black metal and dark durasteel, expressionless save for the triangular grills where eyes might be. And that breathing, mechanical, rhythmic, the sound of a man kept alive by technology and dark will. Vader descended the ramp with measured steps, each footfall resonating with authority and menace. Behind him, a squad of stormtroopers followed in perfect formation, their white armor a stark contrast to their master's darkness. But they seemed like afterthoughts, pale shadows compared to the presence that led them. The Dark Lord's attention, if something behind that mask could be called attention, swept across the abandoned rebel base, taking in every detail with the practiced eye of a military commander. When his gaze finally settled on Goku, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Goku felt that force energy reaching out again, probing, searching, trying to understand what stood before it. But this time it wasn't the gentle touch of Luke's curiosity. This was invasive, demanding, the psychic equivalent of a hand closing around someone's throat to assert dominance. Goku's Kai flared defensively, creating a barrier that the force couldn't easily penetrate. The two energies clashed in the space between them, invisible to normal eyes but palpable to anyone with sensitivity to such things. It was a contest of wills, a test to see who would back down first. Neither did. Vader tilted his head slightly, and Goku got the distinct impression that behind that expressionless mask, the Dark Lord was intrigued. Fascinating. Vader's voice was deep, distorted by his mask's respirator, each word precisely enunciated. Your resistance to the Force is not mere strength of will. You possess an energy that exists outside the cosmic balance, something that should not be possible. I get that a lot, Goku replied, keeping his tone friendly despite the tension. Name's Goku, Son Goku, and I'm guessing you're Vader. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith and Supreme Commander of the Imperial Forces. The title was delivered without boast or pride, simply as statement of fact. You have interfered with Imperial operations, disabled one of our capital ships, and inspired false hope in those who oppose the natural order. For these crimes, you will be taken into custody or destroyed. Surrender is your only option for survival. Goku's expression grew more serious. See, here's the thing, I don't really do the whole surrender thing, never have, and from what I understand. Your empire was about to murder everyone on this base just for disagreeing with your government. That doesn't sit right with me. The rebellion are traitors, Vader stated flatly. They seek to undermine the peace and stability the Emperor has brought to the galaxy. Their existence threatens billions of lives. Funny definition of peace, Goku countered. From what I've seen, your empire maintains control through fear and violence. That's not peace. That's just tyranny with better marketing. You understand nothing of galactic politics or the necessities of maintaining order across 1,000 sectors. Vader's hand moved to his belt, fingers wrapping around the cylindrical hilt of his lightsaber. But understanding is unnecessary. You will submit to the Empire's authority, or you will be eliminated. I vote for option 3, Goku said, dropping into his fighting stance. We fight, and whoever wins gets to decide what happens next. That seemed fair to you. For a moment, Vader simply stood there, processing the audacity of what he'd just heard. In his decades of service to the Empire, no one had spoken to him this way, with the casual confidence of someone who genuinely believed they could win. It was either supreme foolishness or justified confidence. Vader intended to discover which. So be it, Vader said, and his lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss of pure crimson plasma. The weapon hummed with barely contained energy, and in the confined space of the landing pad, it cast everything in blood-red shadows. I will enjoy breaking you. Goku's power began to rise, his aura flickering to life around him like transparent flame. We'll see about that. I've been looking forward to testing myself against someone from this galaxy. Let's see what a Sith Lord can really do. The stormtroopers raised their blasters, but Vader's hand came up in a gesture that stopped them cold. Stand down. This one is mine alone. The two warriors stood facing each other across the empty landing pad, Vader with his lightsaber raised in the opening stance of Form V, and Goku with his fists ready in a stance that combined elements from multiple martial arts traditions. Around them, the abandoned base stood silent, a stage set for a battle between philosophies as much as combatants. dark side against pure-hearted determination, imperial authority against warriors' freedom, the Force against Kai. And in the orbital darkness above, aboard the Executor, other eyes watched through long-range sensors and Force visions, waiting to see if this anomaly from another dimension would prove to be a threat worth destroying or a weapon worth claiming. The wind picked up, carrying dust across the landing pad. Neither fighter moved, both waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The tension built until it became almost unbearable, until the very air seemed to crack with anticipation. Then Vader moved, and the battle truly began. The celebration in the rebel base was subdued but genuine. After years of running, hiding, and dying by the thousands against overwhelming Imperial might, the soldiers of the Alliance had witnessed something unprecedented, hope given physical form. Commander Vorel had ordered increased patrols and sensor sweeps, knowing that Vader's withdrawal was tactical rather than permanent. But even his weathered cynicism couldn't entirely suppress the cautious optimism spreading through his troops. In the command center, a hastily convened strategy meeting was underway. Goku sat at a table surrounded by rebel officers, Luke Skywalker, and several holographic projections of Alliance leadership from other sectors. The Saiyan warrior looked distinctly uncomfortable with all the attention, occasionally glancing toward the door as if considering escape from the bureaucratic discussion. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," said General Riecken, his blue-tinted hologram flickering slightly from signal interference. The veteran commander had survived the Battle of Hoth and carried the scars of too many lost battles. "This power you possess, this Kai, can it be taught? Could we train our soldiers to use it?" Goku scratched his head thoughtfully. "I mean, technically anyone can learn to use Kai. Back on Earth, lots of people trained in martial arts that used it, but it takes years of practice to get strong enough to do what I do. And I'm a Saiyan, which means I'm naturally stronger than humans, and I get more powerful every time I fight and recover from serious injuries." "How much stronger?" asked a Bothan intelligence officer, her hologram sharp despite the distance. Goku tried to calculate in terms they'd understand. "Well, when I was a kid, I could lift a car over my head. Now I can. Actually, I'm not sure what the upper limit is. Planets. I've never tried to lift a planet, but I've fought people who could destroy them, so probably somewhere around that level." The silence that followed was profound. Several officers exchanged glances that mixed hope with the kind of disbelief reserved for religious miracles or obvious lies. "He's telling the truth," Luke interjected quietly. "I can sense it through the Force. He genuinely doesn't know his own limits because he's never reached them." Princess Leia's hologram materialized, her regal bearing evident even through the flickering projection. "Goku, I am Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan. On behalf of the Rebel Alliance, I want to thank you for your intervention today. Without you, that base and everyone on it would have been destroyed." She paused, and Goku saw the weight of command in her eyes, the same look he'd seen in the eyes of warriors who'd lost too much. "But I have to ask, why did you help us? You said yourself you're from another dimension, that you don't understand our conflict. Why risk yourself for strangers?" Goku's expression became serious, the easygoing warrior replaced by someone who'd made life-and-death decisions across multiple universes. "Because that's what strong people are supposed to do, protect those who can't protect themselves. The Empire was going to kill everyone on this base, including people who had nothing to do with your war. I couldn't just stand by and watch that happen." He leaned forward. "Besides, I've fought tyrants before. Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, beings who thought they had the right to kill whoever they wanted just because they were powerful. Your Emperor sounds like the same kind of evil, just with more ships and soldiers." "The Emperor is more than just another tyrant," Leia warned. "He's a Sith Lord, possibly the most powerful dark side user in galactic history. He manipulated an entire republic, orchestrated a galactic war, and systematically eliminated the Jedi Order. Vader is dangerous, but Palpatine is the real threat." Then I'll fight him too if I have to, Goku said simply. But first, I need to understand this galaxy better. What's really going on here? Why are you fighting the Empire? Luke pulled up a holographic display of the galaxy, its spiral arms dotted with millions of star systems. Red sectors indicated Imperial control, which was almost everything. Small pockets of blue showed rebel-held or sympathetic systems, scattered and isolated. 20 years ago, the galaxy was governed by the Galactic Republic. It wasn't perfect. There was corruption, bureaucratic gridlock, corporate influence, but people had representation, rights, freedom. Then the Clone Wars happened, Leia continued. A conflict between the Republic and a separatist movement that wanted to break away. The war lasted 3 years and devastated thousands of worlds. At the end, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, who'd been given emergency powers to fight the war, declared himself emperor. He claimed the Jedi had attempted to assassinate him and were traitors to the Republic. Were they? Goku asked. No, Luke said firmly. The Jedi discovered that Palpatine was actually a Sith Lord named Darth Sidious. They tried to arrest him, and he used their attempt as justification to eliminate them. He issued Order 66, a secret command embedded in the clone troopers' programming. In one night, thousands of Jedi across the galaxy were murdered by the soldiers they'd fought beside. Goku's fists clenched on the table. He'd heard of betrayals before, had experienced them himself, but the scale of this massacre was staggering. That's horrible. It gets worse, Vorel said quietly. After declaring the Empire, Palpatine dissolved the Senate, centralized all power in his own hands, and began a campaign of oppression that's lasted 2 decades. Entire species have been enslaved. Planets that resisted were destroyed. Alderaan, Leia's homeworld, was obliterated by the Death Star just to demonstrate the Empire's power. Billions of people, Leia said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. My entire world, everyone I knew growing up, gone in seconds, reduced to asteroids as a warning to other systems that might consider rebellion. Goku felt his power flare involuntarily, responding to his anger. The air around him shimmered and several data pads on the table rattled. He forced himself to calm down, to center his Kai. I'm sorry, I can't imagine losing an entire planet of people. Unfortunately, you don't have to imagine it, Rieken's hologram said grimly. It's the reality we face. The Empire has the resources, manpower, and weapons to destroy any target they choose. We've been fighting a guerrilla war for years, striking where we can, trying to inspire systems to join our cause. But every victory costs us dearly, and the Empire has nearly limitless reinforcements. Which brings us to the critical question, Leia said, her political acumen showing. What are your intentions, Goku? You say you want to help and we're grateful. But the Alliance needs to know. Are you looking to return to your dimension immediately? Will you stay and fight? And if you stay, will you be willing to work within our command structure? Or will you be an independent operator? Goku considered the question carefully. In his own universe, he'd usually worked with others, the Z Fighters, the Time Patrol, even temporary alliances with former enemies like Vegeta and Piccolo. But he'd never been good at following orders when those orders contradicted his instincts. He'd let Cell absorb Android 18 because he wanted a fair fight, nearly dooming Earth in the process. He'd spared Vegeta on Earth despite Krillin's protests. His judgment calls had saved the universe multiple times, but they'd also put people at risk. I want to go home, Goku said honestly. I have family and friends back in my dimension, but I don't know how to get back. I didn't come here on purpose, and I don't understand the technology or magic or whatever that brought me here. So until I figure that out, I'm stuck. And if I'm stuck here, I might as well help. He stood, walking to the holographic display of the galaxy. But I'm not a soldier. I'm a martial artist. I fight one-on-one against strong opponents, and I protect people when they're in danger. I'm not good at strategy, or politics, or following complex plans. I usually just find the strongest bad guy and fight them until they're defeated. That approach won't work here, Leia said gently but firmly. The Empire isn't one person. It's a system. Millions of soldiers, thousands of officers, entire fleets and armies. You can't punch a government into submission. Maybe not, Luke interjected, but he can do something we've never been able to do, challenge the Empire's strongest assets directly. Goku fought Vader to a standstill. He disabled a Star Destroyer single-handedly. That's not just a tactical advantage, it's psychological warfare. For years, the Empire has relied on fear, fear of their military might, fear of Vader, fear of the Emperor. But now there's someone who doesn't fear them, someone who can fight them on equal terms. More than equal terms, Saren added. He was holding back against Vader, I could tell. He could have killed the Dark Lord if he'd wanted to. I don't kill if I can avoid it, Goku said quietly. I've made that mistake before, letting anger or pride push me to execute defeated enemies. It never feels right. Even someone like Vader, there's darkness in him, yes, but there's also pain. I could feel it during our fight. He's powerful because he's suffered, and that suffering twisted him into what he is now. Luke's head snapped toward Goku, his expression intense. What do you mean? What did you sense from him? It's hard to explain. Your force is different from Kai, but they're both forms of life energy. When we fought, I could feel echoes of who Vader used to be underneath all that anger and hate. He wasn't always evil. Something happened to him, something that hurt him so badly he embraced darkness to escape the pain. The room fell silent. Luke's hands were shaking slightly, and Leia's holographic eyes had widened with something like recognition. Even the hardened military officers looked uncomfortable with the implications. That's remarkably perceptive, Leia said carefully. According to the Jedi archives Luke has accessed, Vader was once Anakin Skywalker, a Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side during the Clone Wars. He helped Palpatine destroy the Jedi Order and became the Emperor's enforcer. Anakin Skywalker, Luke repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Goku saw the young man's face cycle through emotions, shock, denial, horror, and finally a terrible understanding. Vader was a Jedi named Anakin Skywalker. That's what the records indicate, Leia confirmed. Why, what is it, Luke? Luke's next words came out strangled. Skywalker. Vader was Anakin Skywalker, and my father's name was... He couldn't finish the sentence. The silence stretched, heavy with implications that Goku didn't fully understand but could feel the weight of. Whatever connection existed between Luke and Vader, it went deeper than simple enemies in war. Before anyone could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the base. A technician burst into the command center, his face pale. Sir, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. A fleet just entered the system, 50 capital ships at minimum, with fighter screen and support vessels. They're Imperial and they're heading straight for us. Voral's face went rigid. 50 ships, that's not a pursuit force, that's an invasion fleet. How did they mobilize that quickly? The Executor, Rieken's hologram said grimly. Vader must have called for reinforcements the moment he withdrew. He's not coming back with a diplomatic solution. He's coming back with enough firepower to sterilize the planet. Goku looked at the tactical display as it updated with red markers representing the incoming Imperial fleet. 50 capital ships, each one comparable in size and firepower to the Star Destroyer he disabled earlier. Surrounding them were hundreds of smaller vessels, frigates, corvettes, TIE fighter carriers. It was an overwhelming show of force, the kind of armada designed to leave no possibility of resistance. How long until they reach orbit? Leia demanded. 30 minutes at their current speed, the technician reported. We need to evacuate, Voral said immediately. Get everyone to the transports. We can scatter to multiple jump points. They can't chase all of us. They don't need to chase everyone, Luke said, his tactical mind working through the problem. They just need to chase Goku. That fleet isn't here for us. We're not worth 50 capital ships. They're here for him. All eyes turned to Goku, who was studying the tactical display with the focused intensity of a fighter analyzing his opponent's formation. 50 ships, he muttered. That's a lot of firepower. I could probably take out a few, maybe more, but fighting all of them at once while protecting the base. He trailed off, calculating odds and strategies. You can't fight them all, Leia said firmly. Goku, I appreciate your courage, but this isn't like facing one opponent. They'll surround you, overwhelm you with sheer numbers. Even if you're as powerful as you claim, you can't be everywhere at once. She's right, Luke added. The Imperial strategy will be to saturate the area with fire, turbolaces, proton torpedoes, orbital bombardment. They'll target the base to draw you out, then hit you from every direction while you're trying to protect people. Goku's expression was troubled. They were right. He'd faced this problem before, during the fight with the Saiyans when Nappa had threatened his friends while he fought. Pure power wasn't enough when the enemy could split your attention and force you to choose what to protect. And unlike on Earth, where he could use instant transmission to rapidly move between locations, he didn't have any Kai signatures in this galaxy that he recognized well enough to lock onto. What if I lead them away from here? Goku suggested. I could fly out to meet them, make myself such an obvious target they focus on me instead of the base. That would give you time to evacuate. And then what? Saren challenged. You fight 50 capital ships alone in space. Their combined firepower could glass a continent. You'd be vaporized. I'm tougher than I look, Goku countered. I've survived in space before, fought in conditions that would kill most people. If I can disable their ships like I did with the first Star Destroyer. The first Star Destroyer was unprepared, Vorel interrupted. You had the element of surprise. This fleet knows about you, has been briefed on your capabilities. They'll have countermeasures, tactics specifically designed to deal with a single highly mobile target. The Empire isn't stupid, they adapt quickly. Goku was about to respond when he felt it, that dark presence again, but different this time. Stronger, more focused, and accompanied by something else. Another presence, this one cold and calculating, radiating power that made even Vader's darkness seem like a candle compared to a bonfire. There's someone else with them, Goku said quietly. Someone even more powerful than Vader. I can feel them reaching out, searching. Luke's face went ashen. The Emperor, he's coming personally. The command center erupted in controlled chaos. Officers began shouting orders, coordinating evacuation protocols, calculating jump coordinates for the escape transports. The arrival of Emperor Palpatine changed everything. This was no longer just an imperial retaliation. This was the ultimate authority in the galaxy personally intervening to deal with a perceived threat. This is worse than we thought, Leia's hologram said, her diplomatic composure cracking slightly. If Palpatine is coming here himself, he sees Goku as a direct threat to his power. He won't stop with destroying this base. He'll hunt Goku across the galaxy, and he'll destroy anyone who helps him. Then I leave, Goku said immediately. I get as far away from here as possible, lead them away from you. They want me, not you. No point in you getting killed because I crashed on your base. You don't understand hyperspace travel, Luke said urgently. You can't just fly away. The distances between star systems are too vast. It would take years, decades to reach another inhabited system at sublight speeds. You'd die of old age before you escape them. I don't age like normal humans, Goku said. Saiyans stay in their prime for a lot longer, but that's not the point. The point is... He stopped mid-sentence, his Kai senses picking up something that made his warrior instincts scream danger. The dark presence he'd identified as the Emperor was doing something, reaching out through that force energy across the vast distance of space. It felt like psychic tentacles extending from the approaching fleet, searching, probing, trying to locate and understand the anomaly that had humiliated Vader. And those tentacles found him. The connection was instant and invasive. Goku felt the Emperor's consciousness slam into his own, not through Kai but through the Force, bypassing his physical defenses to attack his mind directly. It was similar to telepathic attacks he'd experienced before, but more insidious, more corrupt. Where most telepaths tried to read surface thoughts or implant suggestions, this presence wanted to consume, to dominate, to tear apart his psyche and rebuild it in servitude. Goku's Kai flared defensively, golden aura erupting around him as he unconsciously transformed into Super Saiyan. The command center's lights flickered, electronics sparking from the electromagnetic interference. His power pushed back against the psychic intrusion, and somewhere in the darkness of space, aboard a massive star dreadnought that made even the Executor look small, Emperor Palpatine hissed in surprise. "He's in my head," Goku gasped, sweat beading on his forehead. "The Emperor, he's trying to control me." Luke grabbed Goku's shoulder and immediately felt the psychic battle taking place. His limited force training allowed him to sense the edges of the conflict, Palpatine's malevolent will hammering against Goku's defenses like waves against a cliff. But unlike with force sensitives, whom Palpatine could dominate through superior skill and dark side corruption, Goku's mind operated on different principles. His Kai protected not just his body but his consciousness, and his pure-hearted nature, forged through decades of choosing to do right even when it was difficult, acted as a shield against corruption. "Fight it," Luke urged. "Don't let him in. Focus on your center, your training, everything that makes you who you are." Goku gritted his teeth, pushing back harder. He thought of his family, Kai, Gohan, Goten. He thought of his friends, Krillin, Piccolo, Vegeta, even Bulma with her constant complaints about his stupidity. He thought of Master Roshi, who taught him not just how to fight but why to fight. All the people he'd protected, all the lives he'd saved, all the choices he'd made that defined him as more than just a powerful warrior. His Kai surged, and the psychic connection shattered like glass. The backlash rippled across space, and aboard the Eclipse, Palpatine's eyes widened as he experienced something he hadn't felt in decades, his will being rejected, his power being insufficient to dominate another being. Goku collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. His Super Saiyan transformation faded and he looked up at the concerned faces surrounding him. That was unpleasant. The Emperor's strong, really strong. Not physically, maybe, but his mental attacks are on another level. If I didn't have Kai to protect my mind, he would have taken me over. "The Emperor has dominated the wills of countless beings," Leia said, her respect for Goku growing. "Jedi masters, politicians, even Force sensitives have fallen under his control. The fact that you resisted him will only make him more determined to either capture or kill you." 20 minutes to orbital range, the technician called out. Vorl turned to his officers. "Evacuation status." "Transports are loading now. Medical personnel and civilians are priority 1. We can have everyone off planet in 15 minutes if we push it." "Then push it. I want every ship ready to jump the moment they clear atmosphere." Vorl looked at Goku. "You've bought us time and hope, but now you need to run. Take one of our fastest ships. The Twilight Runner is a modified YT-2400 freighter with enhanced engines and a Class 0.5 hyperdrive. Get as far from here as you can." "I'm not running," Goku said, standing back up. His body still ached from resisting Palpatine's mental assault. But his resolve was firm. "These people came here because of me. If I run, they'll just destroy this base to punish you for helping me, then they'll chase me anyway. At least if I stay and fight, I can protect you while you evacuate." "You'll die," Saren said bluntly. "You're powerful, yes, maybe even powerful enough to defeat Vader or the Emperor in single combat, but 50 ships, thousands of starfighters, orbital bombardment from multiple vectors, you'll be atomized." "Maybe," Goku conceded, "but I've been in situations like this before. When the Saiyans came to Earth, we were outnumbered and outmatched. When Cell threatened the planet, everyone said we couldn't win, but we did because we didn't give up." He looked around the command center at the rebels preparing for what they assumed would be their last stand. You're fighting because you believe in freedom, in the right to live without fear. That's worth fighting for. That's worth dying for if it comes to that. Luke stepped forward, his hand on his lightsaber. Then I'm fighting with you. Vader is my problem as much as yours, and if the Emperor is really coming, the Jedi, what's left of us, have a responsibility to stand against the Sith. Luke, no, Leia's hologram protested. You're not ready to face Palpatine. Your training is incomplete. And it will never be complete if I keep running. Luke's voice was sharp with frustration. I've been training for months, learning from whatever sources I can find, but there comes a point where you have to stop preparing and start acting. Goku's right, we can't keep running from this. Someone has to stand up to the Empire to show the galaxy that they're not invincible. I admire your courage, kid, Goku said, placing a hand on Luke's shoulder. But this is going to be the kind of fight where you can die just from being too close to the action. I've seen it before. Good people who tried to help getting caught in the crossfire between powers they couldn't match. I'm not as weak as you think, Luke said, but there was no arrogance in his tone, just honest assessment. I destroyed the Death Star. I've survived encounters with Vader. I won't be your equal in combat, but I can help. I can use the Force to coordinate, to watch your blind spots, to die for nothing, Goku interrupted gently. Look, I get it. You want to prove yourself, want to make a difference, but the best thing you can do right now is survive. Help these people evacuate. Become the Jedi you're meant to be. Fight the Empire your way with your strengths. He grinned slightly. Besides, if I mess this up and don't make it, someone's going to need to keep fighting. Might as well be you. Luke wanted to argue, but he saw the logic. More than that, he felt through the Force that Goku was right. This battle was beyond him. Not because he was weak, but because the scale of power involved was so far beyond normal combat that his presence would be a liability rather than an asset. Fine, Luke said reluctantly. But if you get in over your head, don't be too proud to run. Use one of our ships if you need to. Deal, Goku said. He looked up at the ceiling, his senses reaching outward toward the approaching fleet. The Emperor's presence was like a black hole in the Force, drawing everything toward it and consuming light. Vader was there too, his anger and determination burning like cold fire. And surrounding them were thousands of smaller presences, soldiers, pilots, crew members who were just doing their jobs in an evil empire. 15 minutes until orbital range, the technician called out. 10 minutes until they're in firing position. Goku walked toward the exit of the command center, his boots echoing on the metal floor. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. Thank you for trusting me, for believing I could help. I know I'm an outsider here, that you had no reason to think I was anything other than another threat. But you gave me a chance, explained your war, showed me why you fight. That means something. You gave us hope, Vorel replied. In a galaxy where the Empire seems unstoppable, you reminded us that they're not invincible. That's worth more than any military victory. Goku nodded, then left the command center. He made his way through the base, passing rebels who were loading the last of their supplies onto transports. They stopped to watch him pass, this stranger from another dimension who'd appeared like an answer to prayers they'd stopped saying. Some saluted. Others simply stared in awe. A few children, refugees who'd found shelter with the Alliance, waved at him with innocent trust. He waved back, his smile genuine despite the approaching danger. Kids were the same everywhere, he thought. Innocent, hopeful, deserving of a world where they didn't have to fear tyrants and empires. When he reached the landing pad, the sky above was beginning to show signs of the approaching fleet. Streaks of light marked ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect military formation. The Imperial Armada was arrayed like a weapon, each vessel positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that would leave no escape vector. Goku closed his eyes, centering himself. He thought about the battle ahead, about the odds he was facing, about the very real possibility that he might not survive this. But he'd faced death before, had actually died multiple times and been brought back through Dragon Balls or divine intervention. Death wasn't something he feared. Failure, however, letting innocent people die when he had the power to save them, that terrified him. His Kai began to build, golden light emanating from his body as he powered up. Not to Super Saiyan yet, he'd save that for when the fighting actually started, but enough to prepare his body for the stress of extended combat. His muscles tensed, his senses sharpened, and his power level climbed steadily. On the base's sensors, Goku registered as an energy source that exceeded their measurement scales. Technicians watched in amazement as the readings climbed higher and higher, surpassing what should be possible for any biological organism. In orbit aboard the Eclipse, Emperor Palpatine felt that power rising and smiled beneath his hood. "Yes," he whispered, his voice like poisoned honey. "Show me what you are capable of, little anomaly. Show me whether you are a threat to be eliminated or a weapon to be claimed." Darth Vader stood beside his master, his hand resting on his lightsaber. The Dark Lord's thoughts were turbulent, unusual for someone who'd spent decades mastering emotional control. His encounter with Goku had been troubling, not because he'd been overpowered. Vader had faced stronger opponents before, but because of what the Saiyan had said, that he could feel Vader's pain, sense the person he'd been beneath the darkness. No one had spoken to Vader that way in decades. Everyone else saw only the mask, the monster, the Dark Lord of the Sith. But this outsider, this being from another dimension, had looked past all of that and seen Anakin Skywalker's suffering. It was disturbing. It was unwelcome. And worst of all, it was accurate. "Lord Vader," Palpatine said, his yellow eyes gleaming, "you will lead the assault. I want this being captured alive if possible. His power could be useful once properly directed. And if he cannot be captured, my master, then you will destroy him." Palpatine's expression hardened. "I will not tolerate threats to the Empire. This Goku represents a variable I did not foresee, a power outside the Force that could inspire the rebellion to believe they have a chance. Such hope must be extinguished." Below, on Dantooine IV, the last transport lifted off, carrying the final evacuees away from the base. Goku watched them go, making sure they cleared the atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace safely. The base was empty now, just empty buildings and defensive emplacements that wouldn't matter in the coming fight. He rose into the air, ascending rapidly through the atmosphere toward the waiting fleet. The Empire wanted a demonstration of his power. Fine. He'd show them exactly what a Saiyan warrior could do when pushed to his limits. And maybe, just maybe, he'd figure out a way to win against impossible odds. Because that's what Goku did. That's what he'd always done. The Golden Warrior climbed toward the waiting darkness, one being against an empire, hope incarnate against overwhelming despair. And in the vast silence of space, the battle that would shake the foundations of the galaxy was about to begin. Space was cold and silent in a way that even Goku, who'd fought in the void between dimensions and in the depths of the hyperbolic time chamber, found unsettling. There was no air to carry sound, no ground beneath his feet, just the endless expanse of stars and the massive Imperial fleet arrayed before him like a wall of gray steel and destructive intent. He hovered there, several kilometers above Dantooine IV's atmosphere, his golden Super Saiyan aura providing the only warmth in the frozen vacuum. The Eclipse dominated the formation, a superstar dreadnought that dwarfed even the massive Executor-class vessels flanking it. 17 kilometers of weapons, armor, and Imperial engineering. It was designed to be an instrument of absolute terror. Around it, the 50 capital ships formed a spherical formation, creating a cage of overlapping firing arcs with Goku at its center. Between the larger vessels, thousands of TIE fighters and bombers swarmed like angry insects, their distinctive scream-whine engines creating vibrations that Goku could feel even through the vacuum. Goku's Kai sense painted a picture more detailed than any tactical display. He felt the 50,000 crew members aboard the Eclipse alone, the hundreds of thousands more spread across the fleet. Most were just normal people, scared, following orders, believing they served something greater than themselves. But scattered among them were concentrations of that dark energy he'd learned to recognize. Inquisitors, perhaps, or other dark side adepts that the Empire employed. And at the heart of it all, aboard the Eclipse's command throne, sat Emperor Palpatine, a nexus of corruption so profound it made the vacuum of space feel warm by comparison. A communications frequency crackled to life, somehow transmitted directly into Goku's mind through the Force. Palpatine's voice was like silk wrapped around a blade, cultured and refined, yet dripping with malice. Remarkable. Lord Vader reported that you could survive in vacuum, but seeing it with my own perception is quite different. Tell me, creature, what are you? Goku didn't know how to respond telepathically, so he simply shouted into the void, letting his voice carry on waves of Kai that the Force sensitives aboard the fleet would detect. I'm Goku, Son Goku from Earth, and I'm not your enemy unless you make me one. Palpatine's laughter echoed through the Force, cold and mocking. Such naivete! You disabled one of my star destroyers, challenged my apprentice, and inspired hope in the hearts of traitors. You became my enemy the moment you arrived in my galaxy. Your galaxy, Goku's power flared, anger bleeding into his aura. Last I checked, galaxies don't belong to anyone. They're just places where people live. You're just a tyrant who thinks fear makes you strong. Fear is strength, Palpatine countered. Fear is order. Fear keeps 1,000 fractious species from tearing each other apart over petty differences. I have brought peace to the galaxy, stability that the weak Republic could never provide, and I will not allow an extra-dimensional anomaly to threaten that peace. You call this peace? People living in terror, whole planets destroyed, anyone who disagrees with you murdered. That's not peace. That's just violence with better PR. The Emperor's voice hardened, losing its veneer of civility. Enough philosophy. You will surrender yourself to imperial custody, submit to examination and control, or you will be destroyed. These are your only options. Goku took a deep breath, unnecessary in vacuum, but the habit was too ingrained to break, and centered himself. He'd hoped for a peaceful resolution, but he'd known that was unlikely from the moment 50 warships appeared in the system. The Empire wanted to make an example of him, to show the galaxy that nothing could stand against their might. Fine. If they wanted a demonstration of power, he'd give them one they'd never forget. I've got a third option, Goku called back. I kick your butt so hard you think twice about threatening innocent people ever again. His aura exploded outward, golden energy blazing with intensity that registered on every sensor in the fleet. Power levels that shouldn't exist according to known physics manifested as pure light, and Goku let himself go, not to full power, not yet, but enough to make a statement. He dropped into his fighting stance, feet braced against nothing, fists raised and ready. So be it, Palpatine said, and Goku heard the smile in his voice. The Emperor was enjoying this, treating it like a game where the outcome was already decided. Admiral Thrax, commence orbital bombardment. All ships, open fire. I want that creature vaporized. The fleet responded with mechanical precision. 50 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels opened fire simultaneously, their turbolasers and ion cannons converging on Goku's position. The vacuum of space lit up with emerald and crimson energy, thousands of individual shots forming a web of destruction that could have glassed a continent in seconds. Goku moved. His instant transmission wouldn't work here. No Kai signatures he could lock onto, no familiar energy to use as a beacon. But he didn't need teleportation when he could simply move faster than the weapons could track. He became a golden blur, weaving between energy beams with the practiced ease of someone who dodged attacks from beings capable of destroying solar systems. Turbolaser bolts that could punch through meters of starship armor missed him by centimeters, their heat washing over his Kai-protected body without finding purchase. A spread of proton torpedoes launched from a nearby cruiser, their tracking systems struggling to lock onto his irregular movements. Goku spun in midair, his hands sweeping out to swat the missiles aside like annoying flies. They detonated against each other in a cascade of blue-white explosions that momentarily blinded the fleet's optical sensors. "Target is evading," a tactical officer reported aboard the Eclipse. "Conventional weapons cannot achieve lock. Recommend saturation fire pattern Delta 7. "Execute," Vader commanded from his position on the bridge. The Dark Lord watched Goku's movements with grudging respect. The Saiyan fought with an economy of motion that spoke to decades of combat experience, each dodge calculated to waste no energy while maximizing survival. It reminded Vader of the Jedi he'd once been, before Mustafar, before the armor, when he could still move with grace instead of powerful efficiency. The fleet adjusted their firing pattern, no longer trying to track Goku directly, but instead saturating entire cubic kilometers of space with overlapping fire. It was a tactic designed for dealing with highly mobile starfighters, scaled up to handle a single target. The volume of fire was so intense that the space around Goku became a solid wall of energy with no apparent gaps. Goku grinned fiercely. Now this was a challenge. He couldn't dodge everything. The attacks were too dense, coming from too many directions, so he'd have to do something he usually avoided in space combat. He'd have to block. His hands came together, cupping at his side as blue-white energy gathered between his palms. "Ka, me, ha me, ha." The Kamehameha wave erupted from his hands, a beam of concentrated Kai that dwarfed anything the Imperial weapons could produce. It was pure life energy given destructive form, powered by decades of training and refined through countless battles. The beam collided with the incoming turbolaser fire, and for a moment, the two forces pushed against each other in a stalemate that created a zone of roiling energy between Goku and the fleet. Then Goku pushed harder, pouring more power into the attack. The Kamehameha wave overcame the Imperial fire and screamed toward the nearest Star Destroyer, the Relentless, ironically, now repaired and returned to the fleet. The beam struck the ship's forward shields, which flickered and died under the sustained assault. Then it hit the hull itself. The Empire's best armor might as well have been paper. The Kamehameha wave punched clean through the Star Destroyer's bow, through multiple bulkheads and decks, through the main reactor chamber, and out the stern. The massive vessel shuddered as catastrophic power failures cascaded through its systems. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, trying to contain the damage, but the structural integrity was compromised. The ship began to list, its engines failing, internal explosions rippling along its hull as secondary systems overloaded. Goku cut off the Kamehameha wave, breathing slightly harder from the exertion. He hadn't tried to destroy the ship. The beam had been carefully controlled to disable rather than annihilate. But the demonstration was clear. His energy attacks could penetrate Imperial defenses that were designed to withstand capital ship weapons. Aboard the Eclipse, silence reigned on the bridge. Officers stared at their tactical displays in disbelief. A single being had just disabled a Star Destroyer with one attack, an attack that hadn't even appeared to strain him significantly. "Impossible," Admiral Thrax whispered. "Our shields are rated to withstand gigaton-level impacts. How can one organism generate that much power?" "Because he is not of this galaxy," Palpatine said calmly, though his eyes burned with interest. "He operates on principles our science does not understand, but all energy follows certain laws, even his. Continue the assault. Find his limits." The fleet redoubled their fire, and now the TIE fighters joined the attack. Thousands of nimble craft streaked toward Goku, their laser cannons adding to the storm of fire. They employed swarm tactics, coming at him from every angle, trying to overwhelm him through sheer numbers. Goku found himself actually having to work to keep track of all the threats. The fighters were individually weak, but their pilots were skilled, and their coordinated assault was forcing him to divide his attention. He couldn't just blow them all up. Each TIE fighter had a person inside, someone who might just be a kid following orders, trying to make a living in an oppressive empire. But he also couldn't let them hit him indefinitely. Even with his Ki-reinforced durability, sustained fire from thousands of weapons would eventually wear him down. So he went on the offensive. Goku shot forward with explosive acceleration, closing the distance to the nearest squadron of TIE fighters in less than a second. His fists became a blur, each punch precisely calibrated to crumple a fighter's hull without causing a catastrophic explosion that would kill the pilot. He moved through the formation like a golden comet, leaving disabled fighters spinning in his wake, their pilots frantically trying to stabilize and retreat. A squadron leader's voice crackled over Imperial comms. "This is Delta Leader, we can't touch him. He's too fast, too strong. Request immediate support." "All bombers converge on target," Vader ordered. "Deploy proton bombs on proximity fuse. If he will not hold still to be hit, we will fill the space around him with explosions." TIE bombers lumbered into position, their heavier frames carrying payloads designed for planetary bombardment. They released their ordnance in coordinated waves, not aimed directly at Goku, but deployed in a spherical pattern around his position. Dozens of proton bombs hung in space for a split second, their proximity sensors active, waiting for any object to enter their trigger radius. Goku saw the trap forming and realized the problem. If he stayed still, the fleet would hammer him with concentrated fire. If he moved, he'd trigger the bombs, which were positioned close enough that their overlapping blast radii would create a continuous explosion zone. It was actually pretty clever tactics, using area denial weapons to limit his mobility. But there was a third option they hadn't considered. Goku teleported, not with instant transmission, but with raw speed. He moved so fast that his body left afterimages, creating the illusion of being in multiple places at once. He wove between the floating bombs, his Kai sense guiding him through the gaps in the explosive grid. His hands lashed out as he passed each bomb, carefully disabling their proximity sensors with precise strikes that left the weapons inert. In less than 3 seconds, he'd neutralized every single bomb in the formation without detonating a single one. The disabled ordnance hung in space like broken toys, and Goku allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. No explosions meant no danger to the pilots who deployed them. "He's neutralized the proton bomb grid," a tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with stress. "Sir, conventional weapons are ineffective. He's adapting to every strategy we employ." Vader's mechanical breathing was the only sound on the bridge for a long moment. Then the Dark Lord spoke, his voice carrying the weight of decision. "Deploy the interdiction field. Prevent him from escaping to hyperspace. Then prepare to launch Operation Shadowfall." "My lord," Admiral Thrax interjected carefully, "Operation Shadowfall requires us to move capital ships into close proximity to each other. If he's capable of disabling them as quickly as he did the Relentless, we risk catastrophic collateral damage." "The risk is acceptable," Vader said flatly. "The Emperor wishes to test this being's limits. We will oblige him." In the depths of space, 4 Interdictor-class cruisers activated their gravity well projectors. Massive fields of artificial gravity rippled outward, creating distortions in real space that would prevent any ship from entering hyperspace within the affected area. It was technology designed to trap fleeing rebel vessels, now repurposed to cage a single fighter. Goku felt the change immediately, a strange pulling sensation, like space itself had become thicker, more resistant to movement. It didn't affect his flight through normal space, but he instinctively knew that if he tried to move too fast, to push his speed beyond a certain threshold, something bad would happen. The Empire had created a trap, and he was in the center of it. "Clever," Goku muttered, respecting the tactical thinking even as he recognized the danger. They were limiting his options, forcing him to fight on their terms. The capital ships began to move, breaking their formation to surround him more tightly. 10 Star Destroyers positioned themselves in a spherical arrangement with Goku at the center, close enough that their overlapping shields created a layered defense that would be difficult to penetrate. Between them, the smaller vessels and fighters maintained constant fire, keeping Goku's attention divided. Then the Star Destroyers did something unexpected. Their ventral hangar bays opened, and from each ship emerged something that made Goku's eyes widen. They were droids, massive humanoid machines, each one the size of a building, with glowing red eyes and arms that ended in heavy cannons. There were dozens of them, maybe 100, all deploying simultaneously from the surrounding ships. "What the hell are those?" Goku wondered aloud. Vader's voice came through the Force, tinged with dark satisfaction. "Those are Dark Trooper Phase 0 prototypes, combat droids designed to fight Force-sensitive targets. They are shielded against energy attacks, armed with weapons specifically calibrated to disrupt biological functions, and their programming allows them to adapt to enemy combat patterns in real time." The Dark Troopers activated their thrusters and began closing in on Goku from all directions, their movements coordinated through networked AI. They opened fire with weapons that produced a strange purple energy, not turbolasers or ion cannons, but something else entirely. When the energy passed near Goku, he felt his Kai fluctuate, like the attacks were specifically designed to interfere with life energy. He dodged the first volley, but the Dark Troopers predicted his movement, already firing at where he would be rather than where he was. One beam clipped his shoulder, and Goku gasped as pain lanced through his arm. The energy didn't just burn, it temporarily disrupted his Kai control, making that arm feel numb and unresponsive. "Okay, that's new," Goku said, shaking out his arm as feeling slowly returned. "Weapons that target life energy. The Empire's got some interesting tech." He couldn't afford to keep dodging indefinitely, not with these droids learning his patterns. He needed to take them out quickly before they adapted enough to become a real threat. And unlike the TIE fighters with living pilots, these were just machines. He didn't need to hold back. Goku's aura intensified, lightning crackling around him as he pushed deeper into his Super Saiyan power. His speed doubled, then tripled, and he shot forward into the midst of the Dark Trooper formation. His fists became instruments of destruction, each punch delivered with enough force to crumple Durasteel armor and shatter the droid's internal systems. He moved like a golden whirlwind, destroying Dark Troopers faster than their networked AI could adapt. Mechanical bodies exploded into component parts, damaged droids tumbling through space with sparking electrical systems and severed limbs. Within 30 seconds, half the Dark Trooper force was disabled or destroyed. But the Empire had planned for this. While Goku was focused on the droids, the Star Destroyers had been repositioning, and now they executed the next phase of Operation Shadowfall. All 10 ships fired simultaneously, not at Goku, but at specific points around him. The turbolaser fire intersected at calculated coordinates, and where the beams met, they created sustained zones of intense energy. The space around Goku became a cage of intersecting turbolaser fire, each beam feeding into the others to create a network of energy that would vaporize anything that tried to pass through it. The Empire had essentially built a prison out of their own weapons, with Goku trapped inside alongside the remaining Dark Troopers. "They're boxing me in," Goku realized, his tactical mind analyzing the situation. The turbolaser cage was being sustained continuously. As long as the Star Destroyers had power, the prison would hold. And inside the cage, the Dark Troopers were still operational, still firing their Kai-disrupting weapons, still adapting to his fighting style. It was actually impressive coordination. The Empire's tactical doctrine was built on overwhelming force and precise execution, and they were demonstrating both against him. If he tried to break through the turbolaser cage, he'd expose himself to sustained fire that even his Kai-reinforced body might not withstand. If he stayed inside, the Dark Troopers would eventually adapt enough to land hits, wearing him down through attrition. He needed to change the game entirely. Goku closed his eyes, centering himself despite the chaos around him. He thought about all the techniques he'd learned over the years, all the creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The Kamehameha was powerful but predictable. The instant transmission wouldn't work without a target. The spirit bomb required time to charge and cooperation from living beings, which the droids didn't provide. But there was one technique that might work, something he'd learned from watching Vegeta, refined through his own understanding of Kai manipulation. Goku's hands came up, fingers spread, as golden energy gathered around him. But instead of forming it into a single beam or blast, he shaped it into dozens of smaller spheres, each one containing compressed Kai that he could direct independently. "Multiform attack," he shouted, though in the vacuum of space, only Force sensitives could hear him. The energy spheres shot outward in all directions simultaneously. Some targeted the remaining Dark Troopers, exploding on impact with enough force to disable the droids without creating the massive explosions that would threaten nearby ships. Others curved through space, guided by Goku's will, to strike at specific points on the turbolaser cage. But these weren't meant to break through the energy prison. Instead, they were precisely aimed at the Star Destroyers themselves, specifically at their turbolaser emitters. The explosions disabled the weapons creating the cage, and suddenly gaps appeared in the energy prison. Goku didn't hesitate. He shot through one of the gaps, accelerating to maximum speed as he broke free of the containment. The Star Destroyers tried to adjust their fire to rebuild the cage, but Goku was already too far away, weaving between capital ships with speed that made their targeting computers useless. He needed to end this battle before the Empire could devise more creative ways to trap him. And there was only one way to do that: take out the command ship. If he could disable the Eclipse, force Palpatine and Vader to retreat, the rest of the fleet would likely withdraw to regroup. Goku changed course, angling directly toward the massive super-star dreadnought that dominated the Imperial formation. Immediately, every weapon in the fleet redirected to intercept him. TIE fighters swarmed his path, creating a living wall of fighters between him and his target. The Eclipse's own defensive turbolasers opened fire, creating a storm of energy that would have reduced a small moon to rubble. But Goku had fought through worse. During the battle with Frieza, he'd powered through death beams and planet-destroying attacks. Against Cell, he'd endured punishment that would have killed anyone else. His Saiyan biology thrived on this kind of challenge, his power actually increasing slightly as his body adapted to the stress of extended combat. He smashed through the TIE fighter screen like a golden meteor, his passage leaving disabled fighters tumbling in his wake. The Eclipse's fire intensified, the flagship concentrating its entire defensive grid on stopping him. Explosions bloomed around Goku as proximity-fused missiles detonated, turbolaser fire converged on his position, and even experimental weapons that the Empire had been developing for anti-starfighter defense were unleashed. Through it all, Goku pressed forward, his Kai aura flaring brighter with each impact that connected. His gi was torn and burned, his body covered in minor injuries from the sustained fire, but nothing was slowing him down. He was going to reach that ship. He was going to end this. Then he felt it, a presence stepping into his path, materializing through the force on the Eclipse's hull directly between Goku and the command tower. Darth Vader stood on the surface of his flagship, his cape whipping in the electromagnetic turbulence created by Goku's approach. The Dark Lord's lightsaber ignited, its crimson blade defiant against the golden light of Goku's aura. Through the force, Vader extended his will, creating a bubble of atmosphere around himself. Impossible for most Force users, but Vader had spent decades mastering techniques that pushed the boundaries of what the Sith could accomplish. Goku slowed his approach, coming to a stop just meters away from Vader. The two warriors faced each other on the hull of the superstar dreadnought, Surrounded by the chaos of the fleet battle, two beings who represented completely different philosophies of power. "You cannot reach the Emperor," Vader said, his voice carried through the Force. "I will not permit it." "I don't want to kill you, Vader," Goku replied, his expression serious. "You're strong, maybe even strong enough to push me to my limits, but this doesn't have to end with one of us dead. You could walk away. You could stop serving an empire built on fear and death." "You presume to judge me." Vader's anger flared, his presence in the Force intensifying. "You know nothing of my choices, of the path that led me here. I am Sith because the Jedi way failed. I serve the Emperor because order is preferable to chaos. And I will destroy you because you represent a threat to the only stability this galaxy has known in generations." "Then I guess we're doing this the hard way," Goku said, dropping back into his fighting stance. Vader raised his lightsaber in the opening form of Gemso, and around them, the fleet pulled back slightly. Even Admiral Thrax recognized that their weapons might do more harm than good in a duel between beings of this caliber. The two warriors stood on the hull of the Eclipse, the fate of a galaxy hanging in the balance, both knowing that only one of them would walk away from this confrontation. And in the darkness of his meditation, chambered deep within the ship, Emperor Palpatine watched through the Force, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. The true battle was about to begin. The duel began without warning or ceremony. Vader lunged forward with explosive Force-enhanced speed, his crimson lightsaber cutting through the void in a diagonal slash aimed at Goku's midsection. The Dark Lord's movements were economical and precise, decades of combat experience distilled into perfect technique. Goku sidestepped, his Super Saiyan reflexes making Vader's attack seem almost sluggish by comparison. But he'd learned from their first encounter, Vader didn't rely solely on speed or strength. The Dark Lord was fighting smart, each strike positioned to limit Goku's options, to herd him toward positions where follow-up attacks would be unavoidable. A horizontal slash forced Goku to duck, and Vader immediately followed with a force push that sent invisible pressure hammering into Goku's chest. The Saiyan skidded backward across the Eclipse's hull, boots scraping against metal, but maintained his balance. He countered with a Kai blast, carefully controlled, meant to disable rather than kill, but Vader deflected it with his lightsaber, the blade absorbing and redirecting the energy. "You still hold back," Vader observed, pressing his attack. "You could kill me, yet you hesitate. Mercy is weakness." "Mercy is strength," Goku countered, blocking a thrust with his forearm. His Kyrian-forced skin held against the plasma blade, though the heat burned through his defenses faster than before. The sustained combat was wearing on him, making his energy control less efficient. Killing should always be the last resort, not the first. They exchanged blows across the Eclipse's hull, two vastly different fighting philosophies clashing in the silence of space. Vader's technique was refined through tradition, the accumulated wisdom of Jedi and Sith who'd fought for millennia. Goku's style was improvised chaos, techniques from multiple masters combined with his own innovations, constantly adapting and evolving mid-battle. Inside the Eclipse's command throne, Emperor Palpatine watched through the Force, his ancient mind analyzing every aspect of the combat. He saw Goku's power fluctuating, saw the minor hesitations as the Saiyan consciously chose non-lethal options, and he saw opportunity. "Lord Vader," Palpatine's voice whispered through the Force, "drive him toward the portside observation deck. I have prepared something special." Vader adjusted his tactics immediately, his attacks becoming more aggressive, forcing Goku to retreat across the hull. The Saiyan warrior didn't realize he was being maneuvered until it was too late. Beneath them, concealed blast doors suddenly opened, and from the hangar below, something emerged that made even Goku pause. It was massive, a droid unlike any he'd seen before, easily 50 meters tall, humanoid in basic shape but covered in heavy armor plating. Its eyes glowed with malevolent red light, and in its hands it carried weapons that crackled with dark side energy. The Emperor's voice echoed across all frequencies. "Behold, the Annihilator, built from ancient Sith technology, powered by tortured Force-sensitive souls bound to its core. Let us see how your mercy serves you against this." Goku's expression hardened. He could feel them, the anguished presences trapped within the machine, Force-sensitive beings whose suffering powered the droid systems. It was an abomination, technology twisted with dark magic to create something that should never exist. "You trapped people inside that thing." Goku's power surged, his aura blazing brighter as anger overrode his usual restraint. "You're torturing innocent people to power a weapon." "They serve the Empire," Palpatine replied, his voice dripping with false piety. "Their sacrifice brings order to chaos. Surely you understand the necessity of sacrifice, warrior." The Annihilator moved with surprising speed for something so massive, its weapons charging as it advanced on Goku. Dark side lightning arced from its hands, not the pale imitation that most Sith could produce, but genuine Force lightning amplified through technological means to planet-scorching intensity. Goku crossed his arms defensively as the lightning struck, his Kai flaring to protect him. But this wasn't like Vader's Force attacks. This was corrupted energy that specifically targeted life force, trying to burn away his Kai from the inside out. Pain lanced through his body, every nerve screaming in agony. Through gritted teeth, Goku pushed back, his power rising to meet the assault. Golden light battled against dark lightning, and for a moment the two forces were evenly matched. Then Goku dug deeper, accessing more of his reserves, and his power overwhelmed the Annihilator's attack. "I won't let you keep hurting them," Goku roared, and shot forward with explosive speed. His fist drove into the Annihilator's chest armor with enough force to crack durasteel reinforced with Sith alchemy. The droid staggered, systems sparking, but its programming forced it to continue fighting. Vader used the distraction, attacking from Goku's blind side. His lightsaber scored a hit across Goku's back, cutting through his gi and burning a line of agony across his shoulder blade. Goku spun, his counterattack forcing Vader to retreat, but the damage was done. First blood had been drawn. "You cannot win this battle," Vader stated coldly. "You fight us the fleet and your own compassion. Eventually you will fall." "Maybe," Goku admitted, breathing harder now. Multiple fronts, sustained combat, and the emotional strain of knowing innocent people were suffering inside that droid. It was all taking a toll. "But I'll take as many of you down as I can before that happens." He gathered his energy, preparing for something he rarely used, a technique that would drain him significantly but could end this quickly. His hands cupped at his side, but this time, the energy building between his palms was different. Brighter, more intense, drawing not just from his own Kai but from the life energy of the planet below, from the scattered rebel ships fleeing to safety, from every living thing that wanted to see the Empire fall. "Spirit bomb," Goku whispered, and the sphere of pure white energy began to grow. Palpatine felt it immediately, energy that wasn't dark or light in the Force's terms, but something fundamentally good, powered by the collective will for justice and freedom. It was everything the Sith opposed, everything the Empire had tried to crush, and it was growing larger with each passing second. "All ships fire on him now," Palpatine commanded, genuine alarm entering his voice for the first time. "Interrupt that technique." The fleet responded instantly. 50 capital ships redirected all power to weapons, and the space around Goku became a hellstorm of turbolaser fire. The Annihilator grabbed Goku with massive hands, trying to disrupt his concentration through physical force. Vader pressed his attack, lightsaber striking again and again. But Goku held on. Pain washed over him, burns from energy fire, crushing pressure from the Annihilator's grip, the constant drain of maintaining his defense while charging the spirit bomb. Blood ran down his face from a dozen small wounds. His gi was shredded, his body pushed beyond normal limits. And still the spirit bomb grew, fed by the desperate hope of billions across the galaxy who yearned for freedom. "This ends now," Goku shouted and hurled the spirit bomb directly at the eclipse. The massive sphere of energy screamed through space, burning away turbolaser fire that tried to intercept it. Vader attempted to deflect it with the Force, but the technique wasn't meant to harm the innocent. It passed through his defense as if it weren't there, seeking only those who carried genuine malice in their hearts. The spirit bomb struck the eclipse's command section, and Emperor Palpatine had one moment to realize his mistake before the energy engulfed his position. The ancient Sith Lord's screams echoed through the Force as power antithetical to everything he represented tore at his existence. His physical form couldn't withstand it. Flesh burned, bones cracked, and his connection to the dark side wavered. But Palpatine hadn't ruled the galaxy for decades by being easy to kill. Even as the spirit bomb consumed him, he transferred his consciousness, using secret Sith techniques to abandon his dying body and project his essence toward a prepared clone vessel hidden deep within the Imperial Palace on Coruscant. The eclipse's bridge exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations. Command systems failed, power conduits ruptured, and the massive dreadnought began listing as its engines sputtered and died. Vader felt his master's presence vanish from the ship, felt the tether that had bound him to Palpatine for decades suddenly go slack. For one brief moment, something like clarity returned to the Dark Lord's mind. Without the Emperor's constant influence, without the weight of decades of manipulation, Anakin Skywalker's consciousness stirred beneath Vader's armor. He looked at Goku, who was barely floating now, his power depleted from the spirit bomb. The Saiyan had sacrificed his own safety to strike at the Emperor, had pushed himself to the brink of unconsciousness to protect people he'd never met. "Why?" Vader asked quietly, his voice carrying only to Goku through the Force. "Why risk everything for strangers? Why show mercy to those who show you none?" Goku's answer was simple, delivered through a pained smile. "Because that's what heroes do." The word struck something deep within Vader, a memory of when he'd wanted to be a hero, when Anakin Skywalker had dreamed of freeing slaves and bringing peace to the galaxy. Before the fear, before the fall, before everything had turned to ashes. Around them, the Imperial fleet was in chaos. With the eclipse disabled and the Emperor's presence gone, command structure collapsed. Some ships held position, awaiting orders. Others began retreating, their commanders unwilling to continue a battle without clear authorization. Vader made a decision. "Withdraw," he commanded across all Imperial frequencies. "All ships, retreat to designated rally points. This engagement is concluded." As the fleet began its withdrawal, Vader looked once more at Goku. "You have won this day, warrior, but the Empire does not forget. We will adapt and we will return." "I'll be ready," Goku replied weakly. "And next time, maybe you'll remember that there's more to strength than just power and fear." Vader said nothing, simply turning and force-leaping back toward his damaged flagship. Around him, the Eclipse's crew scrambled to implement emergency repairs, to restore enough power to limp back to Imperial space. Goku watched the fleet retreat, his consciousness fading as exhaustion finally overcame him. His Super Saiyan transformation flickered and died, leaving just Son Goku, battered, burned, but victorious. As darkness claimed him, his last thought was relief that he'd protected those rebels, that his power had been enough. His body began to fall toward Dantooine IV, unconscious and defenseless, tumbling through space like a meteor. And from the edge of the system, the Millennium Falcon emerged from hyperspace, Han Solo at the controls. "Tell me we're not too late," Han muttered, seeing the retreating Imperial fleet and the falling figure. "We're not," Luke said from the co-pilot's seat, reaching out through the Force to guide them toward Goku. "But we need to hurry." The Millennium Falcon's tractor beam caught Goku's falling body just as he entered Dantooine IV's upper atmosphere. Inside the ship's medical bay, Luke and Leia worked frantically to stabilize the unconscious Saiyan while Han kept the Falcon on evasive maneuvers, ensuring no Imperial stragglers decided to take a parting shot. "His vitals are all over the place," Leia said, checking the medical scanner with growing concern. "Heart rate, blood pressure, neural activity. Nothing matches any species profile in our database. I don't even know if what I'm reading is normal for him or if he's dying." "He's not dying," Luke said with quiet certainty, his hand resting near Goku's chest. Through the Force, he could sense the Saiyan's life energy, depleted, yes, but already beginning to regenerate at a rate that should have been impossible. His body is healing itself. Whatever biology he has, it's designed for exactly this kind of punishment. Chewbacca rumbled a question from the cockpit, and Han called back. "Yeah, Chewie's right, we need to get him somewhere safe. The Empire's retreating now, but they'll be back with reinforcements once they regroup." "Take us to the Rebellion's medical frigate," Leia commanded. "The Redemption. They'll have the facilities to monitor him properly, and we need to debrief with command about what just happened." As the Falcon jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Dantooine system behind, Goku's unconscious mind wandered through dreams and memories. He saw his sons' faces, Gohan and Goten, training together in the mountains near his home. He saw Kai scolding him for getting hurt again, her anger masking deep worry. He saw Vegeta smirking, saying something about Saiyan pride and worthy opponents. And he saw something else, a vision that felt more real than memory. The Force, that pervasive energy that connected all life in this galaxy, was touching him, trying to understand what he was. In that liminal space between consciousness and sleep, Goku felt the fundamental difference between his Kai and their Force. His power came from within, cultivated through training and will. Theirs came from connection, from accepting that all life was one. Different paths to similar destinations. Different philosophies reaching for the same truth, that individual beings could touch something greater than themselves. 3 days later, Goku's eyes opened to the sterile white ceiling of a medical bay. His body ached with the particular soreness that came after pushing past his limits, but the pain was manageable. He'd felt worse after training sessions in increased gravity or fights against Frieza's transformations. "You're awake," Luke's voice came from beside the bed. The young Jedi looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much. "You've been unconscious for 72 hours. We were starting to worry." Goku sat up slowly, testing his body's responses. Everything worked, though he was definitely weaker than normal. "Sorry for worrying you. That spirit bomb took everything I had. Haven't pushed myself that hard in a while." He looked around the medical bay, nodding the monitoring equipment and the ship's gentle vibration indicating they were in space. "Where are we?" "Aboard the Redemption, the Alliance's medical frigate. We're in a secure location, nowhere near Dantooine or any Imperial activity." Luke leaned forward, his expression intense. "Goku, what you did back there. You disabled the Emperor, scattered the entire Imperial fleet. You've done more damage to the Empire in one battle than the Rebellion has managed in years." "Is everyone okay? The rebels from the base?" "All evacuated safely. No casualties from our side. The Empire lost the Eclipse. It's too damaged to repair quickly, and you destroyed dozens of their fighters and disabled multiple capital ships." Luke paused. "The galaxy is talking about nothing else. A warrior from another dimension who fought the Empire to a standstill. Some systems are using it as inspiration to resist. Others are terrified that your presence will bring Imperial retaliation down on them." Goku processed this, his expression troubled. "I didn't mean to cause problems. I just wanted to protect people." "You did protect people," Leia said, entering the medical bay with a datapad in hand. "But Luke's right. Your actions have consequences that reach beyond simple military victories. The Empire will adapt their tactics. They'll develop weapons specifically designed to counter you. And they'll use the chaos you've created as justification for even harsher crackdowns on rebellious systems." "So what do I do?" Goku asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "Just let them keep killing people. I can't do nothing." "We're not asking you to do nothing," Leia clarified. "We're asking you to fight smart. The rebellion isn't just about winning battles. It's about winning hearts and minds, about showing the galaxy that the Empire can be defeated without becoming monsters ourselves." Han Solo appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his characteristic casual arrogance. "What the princess is trying to say is that you're too valuable to waste on every skirmish. You're a strategic asset, pal. You save yourself for the fights that matter, the ones where your power can actually change the course of the war." "I'm not a weapon," Goku said quietly but firmly. "I'm a person. I fight when people need help, not when some strategy says it's optimal." The room fell silent. Leia and Han exchanged glances, recognizing the steel beneath Goku's easygoing demeanor. This wasn't someone who could be commanded or controlled. He would help on his own terms or not at all. Luke broke the tension. "Then help us understand. You said you're trying to find a way home. What do you need?" Goku's expression softened. "Honestly, I have no idea. I got pulled here through some kind of dimensional rift created during a fight. The energy levels were off the charts, way beyond anything I've seen before. To recreate that and control it enough to aim for my home dimension." He shook his head. "I'd need someone who understands both dimensional physics and energy manipulation at a level that might not even exist in this galaxy." "The Force has many aspects that science doesn't understand," Luke said thoughtfully. "Ancient Jedi texts mention tiers in reality, places where the barriers between different planes of existence grew thin. If such places exist, maybe we could find one and help you use it." "That's a long shot," Han interjected. "Those are myths, kid. Ghost stories the Jedi told to make themselves seem mysterious. Goku existing here is proof that dimensional travel is possible," Leia countered. "If he arrived through a rift, logic suggests other rifts might exist. The question is finding them." She looked at Goku directly. "How long can you stay? How long before you need to get home?" Goku thought about Kai Kai. Probably furious that he disappeared during another fight. About Gohan, who might need his father's guidance as he grew into his own power. About Goten, still just a kid who deserved to have his dad around. But he also thought about the people he'd met here, rebels fighting for freedom, facing impossible odds with courage that rivaled any Z fighter. "I'll stay as long as it takes to find a way home," Goku said finally. "And while I'm here, I'll help where I can. But I won't be your soldier or your weapon. I'll fight the Empire because they're evil and they're hurting people, not because some general tells me to." "Fair enough," Leia said, extending her hand. "Then I suppose we're allies, not commander and subordinate. The rebellion offers you shelter, resources, and whatever assistance we can provide in finding your way home. In return, you help us when you choose to, as you see fit." Goku shook her hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Deal. Now, is there any food on this ship? I'm starving." Han laughed. "Oh great, Luke didn't mention you eat like a Hutt. Chewie's gonna love you." Over the following weeks, Goku settled into an uneasy routine with the rebellion. He trained with Luke, sharing martial arts techniques while learning basic Force philosophy. He sparred with rebel soldiers, always holding back but teaching them tactics for fighting opponents stronger than themselves. He even went on a few missions, rescuing prisoners, intercepting Imperial supply lines, defending vulnerable systems from retaliation. But he also spent time alone, meditating in the Falcon's cargo hold or on quiet planets, reaching out with his Kai senses to try to detect any trace of the dimensional rift that had brought him here. The signature was faint, scattered across the galaxy like breadcrumbs, but it was there. Energy that didn't belong to this universe, slowly dissipating but still detectable if he focused. He was following one such energy trace when his communicator crackled to life. Luke's voice came through, urgent and tight with worry. "Goku, we need you. The Empire's attacking a civilian transport near Hoth. Hundreds of refugees, families evacuating from an Imperial crackdown. We can't get there in time, but you could. Goku didn't hesitate. Send me the coordinates. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his Kai sense toward the location Luke transmitted. He could feel them now, hundreds of terrified life forces, growing weaker as Imperial fighters strafed their defenseless ship. Without instant transmission's precision, he'd have to fly there the old-fashioned way, but his speed in space was immense when he didn't hold back. His aura exploded around him, and Goku shot through space like a golden comet, covering impossible distances in minutes that would take conventional ships hours. When he arrived, the scene was exactly as Luke described: TIE fighters circling a damaged civilian transport, systematically destroying its engines and life support. No mercy, no prisoners. Just murder dressed up as imperial justice. Goku's anger flared, and he dove into the fighters like an avenging angel. This time he didn't pull his punches, didn't worry about being gentle. Each strike was calculated to disable the TIE fighters completely, to send the message that hurting civilians would not be tolerated. The Imperial squadron was destroyed in under a minute. The civilian transport's captain, weeping with relief, thanked the Golden Warrior, who'd appeared from nowhere to save them. Goku stayed long enough to ensure they could make it to a safe harbor, then departed before the Imperials could send reinforcements. As he flew back toward the rebel fleet, Goku allowed himself a small smile. This wasn't his galaxy, wasn't his fight by birth or obligation, but it was a fight worth having, and until he found his way home, he'd keep fighting it, one rescue at a time, one victory at a time, one act of heroism at a time. Because that's what heroes did, no matter what universe they found themselves in. 6 months passed in the Star Wars galaxy, and the legend of the Golden Warrior grew with each telling. Goku became something the Empire couldn't classify or control, not quite a rebel, not quite independent, but always appearing where the innocent needed protection. He saved convoys from Imperial ambushes, freed labor camps on occupied worlds, and stood between tyranny and those too weak to defend themselves. The Empire adapted, as Vader had promised. They developed new weapons, new tactics, entire battle doctrines designed around neutralizing a single highly mobile target. But adaptation worked both ways. Goku trained harder, pushed his limits further, and learned to blend his Kai techniques with an understanding of this galaxy's unique properties. Luke became his student and friend, learning martial arts that complemented his Jedi training. In return, Luke taught Goku about the Force, not to use it, for Goku's connection to Kai was fundamentally different, but to understand it, to recognize its presence in the cosmic balance. Emperor Palpatine survived, as Sith Lords always did, transplanting his consciousness into a clone body hidden in the depths of Exegol. But the defeat had cost him prestige, resources, and most importantly, the aura of invincibility that had kept the galaxy cowed. Systems that had remained loyal out of fear began to question whether the Empire truly was unstoppable. The rebellion's ranks swelled with new recruits inspired by the proof that the Emperor could bleed. Darth Vader remained the Empire's enforcer, but something had changed in the Dark Lord since that battle above Dantooine. The certainty that had defined him for decades showed hairline cracks. He no longer pursued Goku with the same single-minded determination, and when their paths crossed in battle, their confrontations felt less like attempts at mutual destruction and more like philosophical debates conducted through combat. As for Goku's quest to return home, progress came in frustrating increments. He found traces of dimensional energy scattered across the galaxy, remnants of the rift that had brought him here. Ancient Jedi texts spoke of vergences in the Force where reality grew thin, places where the barriers between universes might be crossed. It would take time, perhaps years, to gather enough knowledge and power to attempt the journey home. But Goku had learned patience in his own way. Yes, he missed his family desperately. Yes, he longed for Earth's familiar landscapes and the friends who understood him without explanation. But he'd also found purpose here, in a galaxy that needed heroes as much as his own universe ever had. On quiet nights aboard the Millennium Falcon or in rebel bases scattered across the Outer Rim, Goku would look up at unfamiliar stars and smile. Kai would be furious when he finally made it home. He'd probably be sleeping on the couch for months. Gohan would have 1,000 questions about this other universe. And Vegeta would demand to know why Goku got to have all the interesting adventures. But for now he was here, and here people needed him. So the Golden Warrior fought on, a bridge between universes, proof that heroism transcended dimensional boundaries. One day he would find his way home. But until that day came, Son Goku would do what he'd always done: protect the innocent, fight the good fight, and inspire others to be better than they thought possible. Because across infinite universes, in every reality where darkness threatened light, that's what heroes did. The Force would remember him. The galaxy would remember him. And somewhere in the vast tapestry of the multiverse, the boundaries between universes trembled with the knowledge that no barrier was truly permanent, and that heroism, like hope itself, could never truly be contained.